My name is Dave Baker, and by trade, I'm a minister. I've been doing ministry about 20 years. I'm a Presbyterian. So that's kind of how I view myself. Although I really am interested in a lot of different things, and I'm not currently serving in church. Endowing people is the thing that I'm doing full time. The reason I kind of decided to start endowing people was because I do a lot of thinking, and I'm kind of a news junkie, and I'm always looking at the different studies and different books about what might help society, because I do kind of feel like a lot of folks that society is just a tiny bit broken, and maybe more than just a tiny, but it does need some help. And what is really going wrong, and how can I fix it? So I started thinking about that in earnest about 3 years ago, and I really just fell into this idea of universal basic income. That was very appealing to me. It seemed like just such a great idea. It was such a good idea. In fact, I knew that it would never happen, at least not without a little bit of help. The things I liked about it were that it really gave people a chance to do things like start businesses, gave people a chance to, take risks and maybe get more education, do things that they otherwise wouldn't be able to, like get out of debt. There just seemed to be so many good, positive things around it, and a lot of the research, sort that I read at least, bore that out. It said that there were a lot of good things attached to it, but the main objection to it seemed to be to me that a lot of people would claim that, oh, well, people will waste that. If you give everybody money, they're gonna go out and do things that I disapprove of with it. And as a minister, I definitely know people that disapprove of things and stuff like that. So I felt like the answer to that was to give people at the same time financial literacy training. So it's sort of like you're teaching people to fish at the same time that you're helping them. You're giving them fish and teaching them to fish. So it's a long term solution if you're pairing a guaranteed basic income, because it's not universal, of course, because this is a charity, and with limited resources, and also teaching people to fish at the same time so that they'll have lifelong outcomes that are positive. So that was my thought process.
My name is Adrienne Brune, and I am an associate professor at Averett University. I've been in Danville for about 8 years now, and I work in the sociology and criminal justice department. Most of my area of focus relies around inequalities, and so I'm really interested in understanding how inequalities are not only, made in society, but also solutions to eradicate them or ameliorate them a little bit. So I got involved with the project almost 2 years ago in the fall of 2021. Dave Baker contacted me through a colleague and said that he had an idea he'd like to talk to me about. So we met up that fall, and Dave shared with me a little bit about his vision for guaranteed basic income and financial literacy. We talked a little bit about the concepts and our thoughts on them. Both of us were in agreement of them being, concepts that we could utilize and put into application in the community. And from that point forward, we started figuring out how we could move forward with a pilot study.
I like challenges. I like things that are too hard to do, and I love, like everybody, I love to spitball. I love to think about, well, how would I fix the world's problems? Like if I were king for a day, or if I were Bill Gates or something like that, how would I solve the world's problems? And the answer that kept coming back to me was, well, I think a lot of our problems at root are issues of financial literacy. Like a lot of things kind of spill over from that, because money is, for better or worse, it's a very central part of our society and how it functions. And if you have it, things tend to go a lot easier for you. And if you don't, then life is very difficult. So having those financial literacy skills, I think, uh, are very handy, very useful, and can really support human thriving in a variety of ways. Because if you've got the resources, it's much easier to do things like go to college and then still be able to buy a house afterwards. things like that, that a lot of people, probably the majority of people in this country today, unfortunately, find quite challenging. And so if we can do that, but at the same time actually help people get out of debt through providing a basic income, which studies have shown are very, very helpful. Help people start businesses, help people, get change jobs, transition into new things, help people get out of debt. There are a lot of good things associated with that. So I felt that pairing the two would hopefully have a snowballing effect where people get on the right track and then are able to guide others on that journey with them, like their families and their communities and people that they know. And we've already had folks saying things like they're sharing this information that they're getting with their friends and family.
Dave was looking to implement a guaranteed basic income program that included financial literacy training in the community of Danville. And guaranteed basic income is the idea that we give individuals and families a stipend per month that they can use in whichever way they want. The idea behind that is to give them extra income that will supplement the income that they already have so that maybe they can put it towards savings or they can invest.
Endowing People is a 501c3 that I founded about 3 years ago. And we really try to help people in two ways. We provide a guaranteed basic income at the same time as financial literacy training, because we think that those two really go together quite well. And why has no one ever done that? It seems like if you're giving folks money, you should also help them understand how to use that money. Because the real problem, I think, or one of the big problems in our society is that lack of financial literacy training. People need immediate help and should receive immediate help, but at the same time, you've got to give them long-term help. You've got to really educate them and get them to understand at least the things that they could be doing in order to set themselves up for success in that long-term way. So that's the vision that we're trying to accomplish in Endowing People.
And the financial literacy training aspect really is giving participants giving them the tools to make these choices about budgeting, about saving, about paying off their debt, about investing, and what how the attitudes that they have toward their money.
Honestly, the hardest part was getting people to come to a class. You would think that giving away money and teaching people about how to manage it would be extremely popular, but that was the hardest part. We really couldn't figure it out. We sent out thousands of flyers and emails and text messages asking people to attend our class, and we got virtually no responses. And when I looked at the material, it occurred to me that this seemed to be too good to be true. And I actually had people tell me they thought it was a scam, and that's why they didn't respond. So once I figured that out, I sent a text message to everybody saying, look, I'm from Danville. I'm a real life person. I went to the same high school you did, probably. And this is a real thing. This is a real opportunity. And at that point, once I addressed like this is not a scam, I literally had to say this is not a scam. And then the responses came flooding in, but figuring that out took a few weeks.
I think one of the things that you see is that guaranteed basic income or universal basic income programs have been popping up across the United States over the last 5, 10 years in smaller communities and larger communities across the country. And I think the one thing that makes Endowing People the most unique is that we have the component of financial literacy training. A lot of the guaranteed and universal basic income programs might have resources, but they don't actually provide a training for their participants.
I think that one of the big things that inspired me was my own journey, and it's amazing how much of this is happenstance and how little of it is intentionally taught. I ended up just happening to have a college friend who got into this through his first job, which was selling mutual funds. And so he was educating me a little bit because he wanted to sell me a mutual fund. Little did he know I was a pastor and had no money. But he was at least getting some practice in, and I was also fortunate enough to know a lot of people who had done very, very well for themselves through the church. So a lot of folks who have done very well will often serve on church boards or something along those lines. And I was mentored by a few of these people, fortunately. Even some folks who had been quoted in very popular books and things along those lines. And um, that the fact that it was so serendipitous, that it wasn't something that was intentional, or it wasn't something that we're all taught. Why aren't we all taught these things? It's a travesty in many ways that these things are not taught in high school, and so that was part of what inspired me for certain.
I think for endowing people, the long term goal is to be a stable part of the Danville community, making endowing people a name that people recognize as an organization that assists people in Danville with guaranteed basic income and financial literacy training.
The mission, I would say, is really human thriving. I think that that's something the church has always done. That's something that I really want to see continue uh, with endowing people. I think, helping people really to address the problems and concerns that they have in their own lives, and to help them become people who are able to help others. That's a really big deal to me. I think that that is something that we can do, and I think that it's something that we can do in an intervention that is cost effective and long lasting. At least that's the hope.
The program that's going right now began in January of 2023. And at that first meeting with participants, we distributed a survey to them. It's a pretty comprehensive survey that asked them a lot of questions about their backgrounds, some of the socio-demographic characteristics pertaining to them and their households, but also included things like psychological factors and factors concerning attitudes towards finances and money, and also a little bit about how they do a budget and what types of debt that they have.
I'd love to see exactly this kind of program in every city in the U.S. I think that would be amazing. There are people in every community, I think, who have financial literacy skills. Like they understand financial independence. They understand exactly what you need to do. And there are, of course, in every community, people who need to have this information. So ideally, we would provide a framework and maybe act as a catalyst to see those kinds of groups spring up organically in communities around the country.
The idea that we are helping our community here in Danville, and that, we're putting our effort into seeing our community thrive, especially having come from a history of a lot of economic issues in the region with the textile mills closing down. It's taken a lot for people to bring Danville back, and I think we're on the right trajectory to do that. But sometimes we focus a lot on business and a little bit less on the individuals living in our communities. And so focusing more on how we can help those in our community thrive, they can then maybe be the small business owners in Danville that, continue to keep Danville growing. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into like this vision of not just helping someone out for a 12-month study and then writing up a paper and closing the books on it, but keeping it going. And one of the things I think I would love to see in the future is folks who are part of this study right now coming back and helping out in a way, whether it's just sharing what their experiences were with other people, or even coming back and volunteering in a way that helps out at like other financial literacy trainings or something like that. So it can be really, a movement from the ground up.
In 10 years, I think that endowing people would ideally be in a place where we'd start to see some of the fruit of our labor. where we'd have people in the community who have been through our program who are able to help the community, who are able to start giving back, who are able to share with others exactly what they've done and share their stories and be an inspiration to their families as well as to others, and maybe even be able to make some of those big financial decisions, those big financial obstacles or goals that people have, and really succeed in them. Things like buying a house, or having a college fund for their kids, or being sure that they have built up enough retirement to not only see themselves through securely, but to also have confidence that they'll be leaving something behind for future generations, and that they can really, break that cycle and start this virtuous cycle of generational wealth that we really want to see in folks that have been up until now struggling.
I would love to see endowing people having financial literacy training and guaranteed basic income programs being offered on a much larger scale. I think with the right people involved and the right resources, we could grow this program to impact those in the community on a much larger scale.
Maybe it's the potential to really break cycles of poverty, because I think a lot of that, and from the academic literature, I'm pretty sure this is true, but also just intuitively and experientially, I think that a lot of the wealth gap is is family systems. Family systems are passing down suboptimal ways of dealing with finances, and breaking that cycle by teaching somebody, having one matriarch or patriarch that really can hand down not only resources but also the knowledge, because that's the really important thing, is the knowledge. And being able to do that, I think, has that capacity to break those cycles and really make a lasting change in communities and in families.
I would say there's a couple things that somebody could do if they're interested in endowing people in our mission. I think one thing you could certainly go to our website at endowingpeople.org and take a look at some of the resources we have on there surrounding guaranteed basic income. The definition, what it is, how it works. Also look at financial literacy training resources to get a good feel about what our organization does. And if you're interested in taking the next step to help out or volunteer, you can contact us through the website. As a young organization, we're still, trying to figure out the best way to utilize everyone in the community. But I think the more people that are interested, the better we will be to grow.
I'd say that there are two ways that you can help. Number one, right now, today, if this is something that is inspiring to you, if this is something, helping people who are at risk to get these kind of financial literacy skills that really can last them through a lifetime, and maybe even passing them down to their kids, along with the resources that entails, if that's something that's inspiring to you, you can right now, today, sponsor a family. Our staff are fully funded. So anything that you give to Endowing People is going to end up going directly to the people whom we're helping. And the more funds that we have, the more people that we can help. So it's a very reasonable amount for someone who is financially literate themselves. It's just a few $100s a month to sponsor a family, and you could literally change the trajectory of an entire family, and maybe even an entire neighborhood or community by helping in that way. So that's the first way that you could help. The second way that you can help is if you are highly financially literate and you want to maybe follow this model in your own community, or even in the Danville community, then please do reach out and talk to us. We are developing a lot of materials that hopefully will make that process much easier for those who follow.